agreement for the complete disarmament of Hamas. And this is in what he described as structured phases.
Also coming up on the show today, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has claimed that Russia used a North Korean ballistic missile in its latest strikes against a village. All this and more coming up on World DNA, but before we get to that, let's quickly take a look at the headlines.
US President Donald Trump announces a deal for the complete disarmament of Hamas. Senior Hamas officials say agreement reached with Israel includes provisions addressing the group's weapons and gradual withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza.
Saudi Arabia says it has set up a maritime defense alliance to secure navigation around the strategic Bab el-Mandeb Strait. 14 countries have issued a joint statement backing the initiative.
President Volodymyr Zelensky claims Russia used a North Korean missile in an attack that destroyed a family home in eastern Ukraine, killing 6 members of the same family and leaving 4 other members presumed dead.
Spain deploys extra troops and police officers to its North African enclave of Ceuta after thousands swarmed and entered into the territory from neighboring Morocco.
Anti-immigration protesters march in South Africa's Cape Town, calling for a pause on processing of all foreign visas until millions of nationals without identity documents are officially registered.
The death toll from a coal mine collapse in Pakistan's Balochistan has gone up to 34, as efforts continue to find the remaining survivors believed to be trapped underground.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi welcomes Parliament's passage of the Anti-Paper Leak Bill, calling it a major step towards reforming India's examination system and vowing strict action against those involved in paper leak rackets.
Apple has posted a record June quarter, beating expectations on strong iPhone, Mac and service growth. Boosted by China demand, but a weaker sales outlook for the current quarter sent shares lower as Tim Cook prepares to hand over to new CEO.
European football's governing body, UEFA, says it would boycott the World Cup if FIFA pressed ahead with its private investor plan. FIFA has announced plans to create a commercial subsidiary to run its biggest events, such as the World Cup and Club World Cup.
Weightlifter Lovepreet Singh secures a silver and discus thrower Seema Kaliramna wins a bronze as India's medal tally reaches 17 at the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow. Our top focus on WION at this hour, US President Donald Trump has announced a historic agreement for the complete disarmament of Hamas.
Yes, and that is calling it a critical step, Diksha, towards establishing a new governing authority in Gaza. Reports indicate that mediators and Hamas leaders have reached a proposed framework in Cairo. According to sources close to the talks, the proposal outlines provisions for dismantling the group's weapons and a gradual withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza. However, Israel has not yet officially endorsed the deal.
Well, diplomatic sources had earlier indicated that while significant progress was made during the talks in Cairo, it remains uncertain whether the agreement will hold, as Israeli officials have expressed strong dissatisfaction with several key terms of the deal.
Well, Ghazi Hamad, a senior member of the Hamas negotiating team, stated that the group expects international mediators and the Board of Peace to guarantee Israel's full compliance with the proposed terms. Under this framework, the Palestinian Technocratic Committee, established by the Board of Peace to govern Gaza, would oversee the storage and decommissioning of Hamas's weapons.
Announcing the development of Truth Social, President Trump stated that disarmament would take place across carefully structured phases. He added that following the disarmament process, Israeli officials, they would withdraw, clearing the way for an international stabilization force to work alongside a new Palestinian police force to ensure Gaza's security. Now, he also thanked mediators from Egypt, Qatar and Turkey.
The issue of Hamas's disarmament has remained the primary sticking point in advancing the broader ceasefire deal that has been in place between Israel and Hamas in Gaza since October.
Despite that ceasefire, violence continues to flare in the enclave, with recent Israeli strikes killing at least 6 people, including 2 children, on Thursday.
We're now being joined live by Peter Kuznick from Washington, D.C. He's professor of history and director of the Nuclear Studies Institute at American University. Welcome to the broadcast, Professor Peter. We know for the first time Hamas appears ready to accept a plan that includes its disarmament. If that happens, do you think this will mark the end of Hamas as a military force? And what about its future as a religious force, which is assumed even more powerful?
This would be effectively Hamas agreeing to a deal that it has not been willing to agree to before. Hamas has said in the past that it would consider disarming, but it needed to have Israeli withdrawal and it needed to have supervision. We're getting reports already out of Israel that the Israelis do not like this plan, that they think it gives too many concessions to Hamas, and that they're not going to start this phased withdrawal until Hamas is completely disarmed. So, we've seen this kind of thing before from Donald Trump, where he'll make an announcement and then we'll find out within hours or days that what he said is not accurate. This has happened repeatedly with Iran and in other situations also during his presidency. So it's a very, very preliminary, tenuous agreement. There are almost no details yet available. We don't know who this international stabilization force is going to be. We don't know who the new Palestinian government is going to be in Gaza. We don't know if Israel will accept this, especially with an election coming up in October. If Netanyahu seems to have made concessions to Gaza, that will hurt him badly in the October elections. So even though we'd love to see a peace agreement and stop the fighting and the destruction of Gaza and let the Palestinian people have control over Gaza, there is no guarantee. We have to be a little bit optimistic, but also be quite skeptical at this early stage.
Right, Professor Kusnik, and while we are cautiously optimistic here, but if we were to take President Trump's word for it and believe that the reports of the agreement are accurate, still announcing an agreement is one thing and implementing it is completely another. How do you think that is going to pan out, and what is going to be the biggest challenge, according to you, to implementing it on ground?
The biggest challenge, there are going to be two big challenges. One, Israel does not want to withdraw. And two, Hamas doesn't want to disarm. And it doesn't take an entire side in this to sabotage it. We know there are elements within Hamas that don't like this agreement and would refuse to disarm. They could easily blow it up. And we've seen the Israelis blow up agreements repeatedly, including the agreement with Hezbollah. So the chances of this working are slim. However, Trump desperately needed a distraction from the war in Iran. He hasn't had any positive news out of Iran, and he seems to be cornered and desperate there. And so he's making an announcement here that will get a lot of headlines, distract from Iran temporarily until this falls apart. Now, possibly that's wrong. Possibly both sides are so tired of this terrible situation there that they will be willing to make concessions, but we've not seen, there's no trust between Hamas and the Israelis. The people of Gaza are very bitter toward the Israelis for what looks like a genocide to the world. 70,000, maybe hundreds of thousands of Gazans have been killed. There's still 2 million living under these horrible circumstances. So, yes, everybody wants to see reconstruction. Everybody wants to see peace. People would like to see Hamas disarmed. They'd like to see Israel withdraw. But wanting that to happen and actually making it happen are two very, very different things.
Agreed, Professor. Making something happen and talking about it are two different things, as you rightly mentioned. And if we talk about Hamas giving up governing Gaza, who fills the vacuum? And more importantly, who makes sure that the vacuum is not filled by yet another armed group?
This agreement is supposed to include all the armed groups in Gaza. We don't have any details on who's going to form the new government, who's going to form the stabilization force. I mean, the Board of Peace has been treated by the world as a sham. I mean, Trump's going to be the chairman of it in perpetuity, into his grave. He's going to be running things there. There's nothing about this that has any concrete detail, any evidence, any reason to be optimistic given the history. This has been going on for almost 3 years now, and it's been a massacre. So, would we love to see that something work that will resolve things? Absolutely. Can we believe what Donald Trump says? You've seen his track record. He says things that turn out not to be true. And the Israelis are very hesitant. We already see inside Israel people saying that they don't accept this deal, that this is not a good deal for Israel. And so maybe if it's a bad deal for Israel, maybe Hamas will see it as a good deal for Hamas. But we have to take this with a lot of skepticism right now and hope that something positive comes out of it.
Absolutely, Professor Kusnik, and while the details are sparse, we'll have to wait and see how the situation develops in the coming hours. For now, thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast and sharing your valuable perspective with us.
My pleasure, always.
Moving on to Saudi Arabia, the country has set up a maritime defense alliance to secure navigation around the strategic Bab el-Mandeb Strait.
And this comes amid reports that Riyadh is also preparing for a major military offensive against the Houthis to break the chokehold on its oil exports to the southern Red Sea. Yemen's Iran-backed Houthis have imposed a maritime embargo on Saudi Arabia, the world's top oil exporter, and claimed attacks targeting Saudi oil tankers in the Red Sea and oil infrastructure in the kingdom.
The Saudi Defense Ministry said that representatives from 43 countries and the European Union attended an international meeting that discussed the proposed naval coalition, with Saudi Arabia serving as its founding and leading state and hosting its headquarters. The Saudi Defense Ministry later issued a joint statement on behalf of the 14 countries in the alliance, including Turkey, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Egypt, Sudan and Nigeria. Among the 6 Gulf Arab states, Oman and the UAE were not listed among the countries backing the statement.
Meanwhile, a report citing sources inside Yemen, they said that Saudi Arabia seems to be preparing for a major military offensive against the Houthis by sea and possibly by land. Saudi forces have been seen withdrawing from the east of Yemen in what could be preparation for a land offensive. And according to the report, the troop movements inside Yemen involve concentrating forces that could be on attack on the Al-Bayda, a governorate in central southern Yemen, which is captured by the Houthis.
Now, Saudi Arabia carried out joint airstrikes with the United States on Iraqi sites on Wednesday that it said were linked to attacks on its oil infrastructure. According to assessments by Saudi Arabia and regional partners, this week's attacks were launched by Houthis from Iraqi territory in coordination with Iraqi armed groups. On to the Russia-Ukraine war now. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has claimed that Russia used a North Korean ballistic missile in its latest strike in Ukraine.
And according to Ukraine's Air Force, Russia fired 74 missiles and 284 drones during the overnight barrage. An attack on the village of Barushne in central Ukraine killed at least 10 people, including children, and injuring more than 50 others. Officials said that the victims were all members of the same family. The youngest victim was just 1.5 years old.
Zelensky said that there will be a detailed investigation, but prima facie it appeared to be North Korean ballistic missile. He called on international partners, including US and Europe, to increase air defense support for Ukraine.
In Radushna, the Russians used a North Korean missile for the first time in a long while, according to preliminary data. Of course, there will be further investigations and everything will be verified, but as of now, this is a North Korean ballistic missile. The alliance of Moscow's lowlifes with the insane regime in North Korea, for the sake of missiles, for the sake of the North Korean contingent here in Europe, on our borders, for the sake of killing our Ukrainian children.
But even as Kyiv sought to strengthen its air defenses, US President Donald Trump cast doubt on allowing Ukraine to produce Patriot missiles. During an interview, he said that it is a very extraordinary weapon and US has to be very careful who they license it to.
Meanwhile, a Russian missile strike has reportedly destroyed a drone factory in Kyiv, which is linked to a US-based company. The facility was allegedly involved in the production of drones for Ukraine's war effort.
Meanwhile, Ukraine continued its attacks on Russia's e-commerce facilities. Smoke was seen rising from a warehouse in Penza region after Ukraine reportedly targeted the area with drones. One person was injured and more than 200 employees were evacuated after a fire broke out at a Wildberries facility.
Poland has accused Russia of airspace violations after a missile explosion was reported near a village which is close to the Ukrainian border. Following the incident, NATO said that it is in close contact with Poland and vowed to take all necessary measures to defend NATO territory. Poland Prime Minister Donald Tusk said that the missile that caused the explosion was likely a Russian Kh-101.
According to military experts, the vast majority of the evidence, including the fragments found, points to a Russian Kh-101 missile. This is a cruise missile. It is, of course, capable of carrying payloads, and it is also highly likely that an explosion occurred. The size of the crater, approximately 10 meters in diameter and up to 5 meters deep or even deeper, shows that this was a very serious incident.
In other news, China's ambitions in space are increasingly becoming a military concern for the United States.
Now, according to a Wall Street Journal report, U.S. officials say Beijing is rapidly narrowing America's long-standing advantage in orbit by building one of the world's largest surveillance satellite networks. According to the U.S. Space Force, China's military now has access to more than 510 intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance satellites, giving it an unprecedented ability to monitor military activity across the Indo-Pacific. The Pentagon says these expanding satellite constellations have significantly strengthened China's ability to track U.S. and allied forces and even support long-range precision strikes. Analysts say Beijing has also upgraded its navigation system and remote sensing technology, allowing satellites to capture high-resolution imagery day and night, even through cloud cover. Experts say artificial intelligence can quickly analyze this imagery, helping China's military identify and track targets with greater speed and accuracy.
Well, the U.S.-China Economic and Security Review Commission says that China's expanding space capabilities, they have improved its ability to coordinate military operations while maintaining persistent surveillance of U.S. forces.
Well, a 2024 CSIS-led report ranked Chinese commercial remote sensing systems among the world's top performers in 5 of 11 technology categories.
The Pentagon also says that Beijing is building large constellations of low Earth orbit communication satellites to make its military networks more resilient in the event of a conflict.
The U.S. Space Force has gone a step further, even warning that China is developing counter-space capabilities that could disable or disrupt enemy satellites. While the U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency assesses that Beijing is pursuing anti-satellite weapons capable of striking targets as far as nearly 36,000 kilometers above Earth.
And that's not all. The U.S. State Department has also accused Chinese companies of supplying satellite imagery that could support Iranian military operations in West Asia. As China rapidly expands its military presence in space, Washington faces growing pressure to protect its technological edge in what many experts now see as the next decisive area of strategic competition.
Well, Japan will temporarily slash consumption tax on food from 8% to just 1% starting April 2027.
And this as Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi is trying to tackle rising inflation in the country. This will be the first such reduction since the tax was introduced in 1989. And the rate will return to 8% after 2 years. Takaichi's decision comes despite opposition party criticism and concerns among her fellow LDP members about how around $60 billion or 10 trillion yen in lost revenue would be covered.
In an extraordinary meeting of Liberal Democratic Party executives, Takaichi said, and I quote, "The system will alleviate the burden on low and middle-income working-age individuals, thereby addressing the urgent need to encourage workforce participation."
Well, the move aims to ease cost of living pressures in the world's 4th largest economy, which has been rising due to the war in West Asia and a weak yen. Japan has colossal debt, which are more than twice the size of its gross domestic product, the highest ratio among advanced economies.
Takaichi pledged in February, remember, to eliminate the sales tax on food and beverages, which is a key part of a manifesto that helped her win a resounding victory in lower house elections. Early in the week, the Japanese Prime Minister defended her economic policy, saying that government efforts to prioritize the country's growth potential will strengthen market trust.
The approval rating of Takaichi's administration slumped in July to the lowest level since she took office last year, and in the Yomiuri poll, 71% of respondents disapproved of the government's efforts to combat price hikes. Her overall approval fell 12 percentage points to 57%, down from 69% in June. Disapproval rose from 21% to 34%.
The sliding popularity adds to Takaichi's troubles, who has seen her expansionary fiscal and monetary policy bias cause a spike in bond yields and a slump in the yen to 4-decade lows. Despite the slump, market economists and political analysts believe that Takaichi's numbers remain relatively strong compared to her recent predecessors.
Moving on, a 120-meter-high waterfall rappelling project at the Yedong River, which is a scenic area in southwest China's Guizhou province, is seeing a peak influx of visitors.
Yes, many tourists from both at home and abroad are arriving to take part in the outdoor water sports activities. Take a look and we'll see you after a short break.
India's Global Voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
The Israeli drone is above our heads all the time in Lebanon. More than 200,000 civilian homes have been destroyed. This looks like it used to be a toy for a little girl. Can't but wonder while I'm walking between all of this rubble, how many lives were destroyed, how many kids were traumatized, how many women lost their families. If this isn't a war crime, then what is? From the southern suburb of Beirut, I'm Radi Francis for WION World is One.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Know more, understand better, think ahead. Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Get the facts, not the bombast. On the 26th of March, dynamic pricing, Baloch separatists, Gravitas cuts out the clutter. Gravitas keeps calm when others scream. Gravitas brings news to life. Weekdays, 9 p.m. IST, 3:30 p.m. GMT. Gravitas. Seeing is believing.
In-depth coverage of global issues broken down into facts, figures, and simple words. Backed with analysis from field experts who truly matter. Because we believe in decoding the real picture for you. So you get a much wider and deeper understanding of stories from around the world. A 360-degree analysis. An award-winning documentary series, week after week creating the maximum impact. Watch WION Wide Angle at these times on WION. World is One.
Welcome back. You're watching World DNA with Diksha and I'm Kripa. Let's get started with the headlines.
Ukrainian officials say a Russian attack on a food business in the city of Pavlograd killed 3 and injured at least 10 people. According to Ukraine's Air Force, Russia fired 74 missiles and 284 drones in the latest barrage.
US President Donald Trump announces a deal for the complete disarmament of Hamas. Senior Hamas officials say agreement reached with Israel includes provisions addressing the group's weapons and gradual withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza.
Saudi Arabia says it has set up a maritime defense alliance to secure navigation around the strategic Bab el-Mandeb Strait. 14 countries have issued a joint statement backing the initiative.
Con la concertina por la espalda. ¡Viva España! ¡Adiós! ¡Adiós!
Spain deploys extra troops and police officers to its North African enclave of Ceuta after thousands swam and entered into the territory from neighboring Morocco.
Anti-immigration protesters march in South Africa's Cape Town, calling for a pause on processing of all foreign visas until millions of nationals without identity documents are officially registered.
The death toll from a coal mine collapse in Pakistan's Balochistan has gone up to 34 as efforts continue to find remaining survivors believed to be trapped underground.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi welcomes Parliament's passage of the Anti-Paper League Bill, calling it a major step towards reforming India's examination system and vowing strict action against those involved in the paper leak rackets.
Amazon has beaten market expectations with strong second quarter results driven by cloud, AI and chip growth. Revenue topped $200 billion with AI strength boosting shares after hours despite plans for higher investment spending.
European football's governing body, UEFA, says that it would boycott the World Cup if FIFA pressed ahead with its private investor plan. FIFA has announced plans to create a commercial subsidiary to run its biggest events such as the World Cup and Club World Cup.
In a big relief for protesters, the Delhi government has decided not to take any further legal action in the 13 cases registered by Delhi police in connection to the July 20 NEET protests.
The decision follows a letter from the Delhi government to the Lieutenant Governor that sought approval to halt any further legal action against those who are booked. Further, the Delhi government has now moved to close the cases linked to the NEET protests. However, the relief will not apply to everyone. The government has clarified that those with criminal records will not get this protection, in line with the Supreme Court's order.
The interim directions come as the Supreme Court hears a batch of petitions alleging the use of disproportionate force by the Delhi police against protesters during the July 20 demonstrations.
Moreover, questions are also being raised on the deployment of the Rapid Action Force alongside the Delhi police and the alleged use of pellet guns on protesters. At least 4 people reportedly being hit with pellets.
While the Delhi police has strongly denied the use of pellet guns, a general diary entry filed at Parliament Street Police Station reveals that the Rapid Action Force did in fact fire 2 rounds from an anti-riot gun on the directions of a Deputy Commissioner of Police rank officer.
Following the July 20th protests, the RAF withdrew shock batons, electric shields, pump-action guns and anti-riot guns from personnel deployed at Jantar Mantar.
The alleged use of police excesses was also a flashpoint at the Parliament. Opposition MPs demanded accountability and sought an apology from Union Home Minister Amit Shah regarding the heavy police crackdown. On the other hand, Delhi police said protesters allegedly pelted stones and damaged public property, while security personnel used tear gas and lathi charge after repeated appeals to disperse failed. According to police, around 200 personnel and more than 65 protesters were injured, while over 15 vehicles were damaged.
Furthermore, the Delhi police says that it has screened more than 2,800 people who took part in the July 20th march. And of those examined, 989 of them had criminal antecedents, and they were identified using facial recognition, CCTV footage and videos captured by police and the public.
Additionally, the Supreme Court has also ordered the release of detained protesters who are under 18 and had no criminal record. The Apex Court has also directed an independent probe into both the protest violence and allegations of police excesses.
प्रॉब्लम यहाँ आती है कि स्टूडेंट प्रोटेस्ट सीधा आर्म्ड फोर्सेस के साथ टकराव में क्यों आए। प्रॉब्लम यहाँ है, ये हमारे सिस्टम की कमी है। ये हमारा कॉलोनियल सिस्टम है, ब्रिटिश सिस्टम का हर लॉ एंड ऑर्डर लाठी चार्ज, अब आर्म्ड फोर्स लाओ। ये गलत है, इसको इस्तेमाल करना, इसका हमको दुरुपयोग हो रहा है। ये मिसप्लेस्ड पॉलिसी है।
The Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has welcomed the passage of the Anti-Paper League Bill in Parliament.
He said the new law will help strengthen the examination system and make it even more reliable. The Rajya Sabha passed the Public Examinations Amendment Bill a day after it received approval from the Lok Sabha. The bill will now go to President Draupadi Murmu for her assent before it becomes law. Take a listen.
हम संसद में बिल लेकर के गए थे और जैसा मैंने आपको वादा किया था, गत 2 दिन संसद के दोनों सदनों ने, अधिकतम माननीय सांसदों ने विस्तार पूर्वक उससे चर्चा की है और आज दोनों सदनों ने इस कठोर कानूनों वाले, प्रावधानों वाले इस बिल को पास कर दिया है। अब विश्वस्त परीक्षा पद्धति की दिशा में जाने में एक महत्वपूर्ण काम पूर्ण हुआ है।
The northeastern Indian state of Assam continues to battle one of its worst flood crises this monsoon.
And while floodwaters have begun to recede in some areas, the threat is far from over. The death toll has climbed to 80 as relentless rains continue to batter the region. 7 districts in Assam remain in the grip of floods, with the crisis showing little signs of easing. More than 3 lakh people have been affected, while over 550 villages continue to remain submerged. In response, Assam ministers flagged off 30 truckloads of relief materials for the worst-hit districts, where the need for aid continues to grow.
These images from Kamalchapuri village tell the story. Rows of damaged homes stand surrounded by sludge-covered streets. Dozens of families have been shifted to shelter camps as they wait to return home, and authorities have set up nearly 150 relief camps, providing shelter to thousands of displaced people. Even so, the demand for food, clean water, medicines and other essentials remain much higher than the resources available.
In fact, the floods have also dealt a major blow to Assam's agriculture. A lifeline for thousands of families, more than 37,000 hectares of farmland remains underwater, destroying crops and wiping out incomes.
Amid the worsening flood situation, Union Home Minister Amit Shah spoke with Assam's Chief Minister Himanta Biswa Sarma on Wednesday to assess the state's condition. This marked the second discussion between the two leaders in the past week. Amit Shah assured Assam of the centre's full support for ongoing relief and restoration operations.
Meanwhile, the IMD has forecast heavy to very heavy rainfall accompanied by thunderstorms for the coming days. The warning is especially significant for Assam's border districts, where fresh rainfall upstream could once again worsen the flood situation. Moving on, at least 3 killed and several injured in the last 4 days of Nepal unrest violence that erupted in Nepal's Sansari district.
It has now spread to several other areas across the country. Authorities have imposed curfews in multiple cities and have deployed the army to restore order. Communal violence that started due to an argument over loudspeakers has quickly spread beyond Sunsari to neighboring regions, including Madhya Province, Dhanusha and Siraha.
Now, as the crisis deepens, Nepal Prime Minister Balendra Shah appealed for calm. Speaking in Maithili language in his address, Shah urged people to maintain peace, communal harmony, brotherhood and national unity. Listen to this.
The government of Nepal is fully serious and sensitive regarding the tragic incidents that occurred a few days ago in Diwanganj of Sansari, Siraha and other places, as well as the atmosphere of unrest created in some districts thereafter. I pay my heartfelt tributes to our citizens Jai Prakash Mehta, Om Prakash Mehta and Ganesh Yadav, who lost their lives in this tragic incident. Furthermore, I express deep condolences to the bereaved family members on behalf of the government of Nepal.
According to reports, angry mobs attacked each other, burning and vandalizing government offices, shopping malls, police posts, vehicles and private shops. Many Hindu groups staged widespread demonstrations in parts of the country following their deaths resulting from police firing. Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim has said that Myanmar has agreed to take 5,000 Rohingya asylum seekers currently in the country.
The Malaysian Prime Minister said that good ties with Myanmar enable the two countries to negotiate on the issue. Malaysian Home Ministry has been tasked with locating, identifying and screening the refugees. Muslim-majority Malaysia has long been seen as a safe haven for Rohingya fleeing persecution in the largely Buddhist Myanmar. Around 126,000 Rohingya registered with the UNHCR in Malaysia at the end of February.
On Monday, Malaysian authorities detained over 100 Rohingya Muslim asylum seekers. The refugees had gathered outside the UN Refugee Agency in Kuala Lumpur, seeking protection after being evicted from their homes. All of the refugees outside the UNHCR were taken away with their belongings in 4 police trucks.
We wanted to find homes, but we weren't allowed to rent. No one is letting to the refugees here. Then we wanted to go to the UN office. The officers should be here. We went here by bus and we were escorted here, but no one is here. We stayed here, but they're not letting us stay. We don't know what else to do.
Malaysian Prime Minister said the gathering outside the UNHCR building raised concerns from the public and warned that anyone without proper permits would be detained by immigration authorities.
The refugees, who included women and children, said that they were driven out of their homes by locals in the northern Malaysian state of Penang and had travelled to the capital on buses overnight.
The evictions came amid a rise in online hate speech and misinformation targeting the Rohingya. Since May, that has led to greater harassment and scrutiny of the community, including widespread school closures.
Now, Malaysia is not a signatory to the UN Refugee Convention and even regards asylum seekers as illegal migrants. Earlier this month, remember, the Malaysian government had asked the UNHCR to temporarily stop registering new refugees in the country as it builds a domestic system to manage asylum seekers. Malaysian Foreign Ministry has called for a review of the UNHCR's domestic operations unless it imposed stricter controls on issuing refugee documents.
South Korea's stock market has witnessed one of its sharpest reversals in recent history.
After surging more than 130% between late 2025 and June 2026 on optimism around artificial intelligence, the benchmark Kospi index has now fallen over 40% from its peak in just about a month. The sell-off has wiped out nearly $2 trillion in market value, erasing massive investor wealth. The rally was driven largely by AI-linked chip makers such as Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix, which benefited from blooming global demand for high-bandwidth memory chips used in AI data centers. At one point, the two companies accounted for roughly half of South Korea's stock market, making the broader index heavily dependent on the performance. That is, the performance of just a handful of AI-related stocks.
Analysts say that the correction has worsened by record levels of leverage. Retail investors had poured money into single-stock leveraged exchange-traded funds, borrowing heavily to amplify bets on AI winners like Samsung and SK Hynix. As stock prices began falling, leveraged positions triggered a wave of forced selling, accelerating the decline. The market also witnessed multiple trading halts after sharp declines. Authorities have now announced emergency measures, including limits on retail investment in single-stock leveraged ETFs and higher trading costs, while introducing round-the-clock market monitoring. However, analysts caution that these measures may have limited impact on existing leveraged positions and they do not address similar products which are listed overseas.
The market collapse has sparked widespread public anger. Protesters placed around 40 funeral wreaths outside South Korea's National Assembly, accusing the government of failing to protect retail investors. They carried messages such as slaughtering retail investors and reminded politicians that investors are also voters.
Now, across social media, individual investors have shared stories of devastating financial losses. Some said that they lost money saved for buying a home, while others claimed that years of savings, investment gains and even borrowed funds had been completely wiped out in the crash. The episode has become a stark reminder of the risks which are associated with concentrated market bets and excessive leverage, especially during periods of extreme optimism surrounding emerging technologies like artificial intelligence.
Some updates from the world of technology now. The European Union is investing 10 billion euros, which is approximately $11.5 billion, to build 7 artificial intelligence gigafactories across the bloc.
The initiative is part of Europe's push to strengthen its AI capabilities and narrow the technology gap with the US and China. Well, the European Commission said that the projects are expected to attract at least 20 billion euros in private investment. The number of planned gigafactories has been increased from 5 to 7, and this after strong interest from European Union member states. The facilities will bring together advanced AI chips, cloud computing, software, high-speed networks, and large-scale data centers. They will complement the 19 AI factories that are already being developed across the European Union.
The European Commission said these gigafactories will provide the massive computing power needed to train and develop next-generation AI models. Consortia made up of technology companies, cloud providers, public bodies, and private investors, they will all be eligible to bid for the projects. The tender process will remain open until November 12th, with successful applicants expected to be announced in early 2027.
The Commission said the gigafactory should become operational within 18 months of contract signing. Chip makers AMD, Nvidia and Qualcomm have already signed letters of intent to supply processors for the projects. The EU hopes that the initiative will boost Europe's AI ecosystem, reduce dependence on foreign infrastructure, and help the region compete more effectively in the global AI race. UEFA will boycott FIFA tournaments if Gianni Infantino goes ahead with his proposal to sell off a stake in the World Cup.
The decision was taken at an emergency meeting of all UEFA's 55 member associations on Thursday. In a statement released on Thursday, UEFA said, "We unanimously reject FIFA's proposal to transfer ownership, interests in the World Cup and other FIFA competitions to private investors. As a result of today's discussion, no UEFA national teams will participate in any FIFA competition for so long as these proposals remain alive, unless this proposal has been abandoned in its entirety and binding assurances that have been given that FIFA will never again open its governance or competitions to private ownership."
Now, the boycott should effectively kill off Infantino's proposal, as investors would be unlikely to put money into tournaments without European teams. The first major tournament UEFA can boycott is the 2027 Women's World Cup, which starts on June 24th next year.
Under the new proposal, FIFA plans to launch a new subsidiary called FIFA Forward Enterprises, which will be worth $20 billion. While FIFA would retain majority control of this new entity, it plans to sell minority stakes up to 20% to outside investors in a bid to raise up to $4.2 billion.
Well, the investor consortium is expected to be led by a permanent capital vehicle founded by Joshua Kushner. Joshua Kushner is the brother of Jared Kushner, who is the son-in-law of US President Donald Trump.
The proposal, it must be approved by FIFA's 211 member associations. FIFA has also offered $40 million to those nations who back this plan and has given them until September 19 to decide. FIFA chief Gianni Infantino says that the proposal will help all countries tap into the sport's commercial value. Infantino has also stressed that the plan is only a proposal at this stage and not an obligation. The Grammys may be music's biggest night, but they are no stranger to controversy. BTS has now joined the list of global stars who have chosen to boycott the awards.
Let's now take a look at all the stars who took a stand before them. After the Recording Academy introduced a new Best Asian Pop Music Performance category, K-pop mega band BTS decided not to submit its comeback album titled Arirang for the 69 Grammy Awards. The group said that the music should be appreciated for what it is and not separated by region or language. Grammy CEO Harvey Mason Jr. responded saying that he was saddened
by the decision, while insisting the new category was created to expand recognition and not limit artists. This is not the first time the Grammys have faced a high-profile boycott. Back in 1999, Jay-Z skipped the ceremony in support of DMX, who received no nominations despite a hugely successful year. He continued to stay away from several ceremonies over concerns about the awards recognition process.
In 2017, Frank Ocean chose not to submit his critically acclaimed album Blonde for Grammy consideration. The singer called the Academy's voting and nomination system outdated. The Recording Academy did not issue a public response specifically addressing Ocean's decision.
Then came the weekend, after Ours was shut out of the 2021 nominations despite its record-breaking success. The singer announced a boycott, accusing the Grammys of lacking transparency. Grammy chief Harvey Mason Jr. acknowledged his disappointment, defended the voting process, and later said the Academy was listening to criticism and making changes.
Now, ranging from Jay-Z and Frank Ocean to The Weeknd and now BTS, some of music's biggest names have challenged the Recording Academy over fairness and representation. Whether these protests led to lasting change remains to be seen, but they have once again put the Grammys voting process under the spotlight.
Well, that is it in this edition of World DNA. But before we slip into a very short break, here's a quick look at the images drawing our attention from around the world. Stay tuned. You're watching WION World is One.
Get the latest updates. Breaking news. Credible, clear, continuous. Experts across aisles. Diverse voices, one platform. WION World is one.
In this rapidly changing world, is your health keeping pace? Best practices and breakthroughs busting the hype with real insights. The timeless power of yoga and ancient healing. Good food, good mood. Small steps, big impact. Your health matters. Only on WION World is One. Because nothing matters more.
Campaigns, elections, alliances, controversies, and power play. Stories that analyze global and domestic politics. A dedicated show with varied perspectives, expert take, citizens' voices, detailed ground reports, and in-depth coverage from political corridors of the world. This is Race to Power, only on WION.
The Israeli drone is above our heads all the time in Lebanon. More than 200,000 civilian homes have been destroyed. This looks like it used to be a toy for a little girl. Can't but wonder while I'm walking between all of this rubble, how many lives were destroyed, how many kids were traumatized, how many women lost their families. If this isn't a war crime, then what is? From the southern suburb of Beirut, I'm Radi Francis for WION World is One.
Know more? Understand better? Think ahead. Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Get the facts, not the bombast. On the 26th of March, dynamic pricing, Baloch separatists, Gravitas cuts out the clutter. Gravitas keeps calm when others scream. Gravitas brings news to life. Weekdays, 9 p.m. IST, 3:30 p.m. GMT. Gravitas. Seeing is believing.
In-depth coverage of global issues broken down into facts, figures, and simple words. Backed with analysis from field experts who truly matter. Because we believe in decoding the real picture for you. So you get a much wider and deeper understanding of stories from around the world. A 360-degree analysis. An award-winning documentary series, week after week, creating the maximum impact. Watch WION Wide Angle at these times on WION World is One.
Campaigns, elections, alliances, controversies, and power play. Stories that analyze global and domestic politics. A dedicated show with varied perspectives, expert take, citizens' voices, detailed ground reports, and in-depth coverage from political corridors of the world. This is Race to Power, only on WION.
Hello and welcome back to WION World is One. I'm Kanishka Sarkar and this is Speed News. Let's take a look at all the stories making headlines at this hour. US President Donald Trump has announced a deal aimed at the complete disarmament of Hamas. Senior Hamas officials say the agreement reached with Israel includes provisions on the group's weapons and a gradual withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza. The reported deal comes amid continued efforts to reach a broader resolution to the conflict and address key security and political issues. Saudi Arabia and 13 other countries have announced a new maritime defense coalition aimed at protecting freedom of navigation through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. Riyadh says the multinational maritime defense alliance will strengthen cooperation to safeguard international trade and energy routes through the strategic waterways. The initiative comes amid rising regional tensions, including attacks on shipping routes by Iran-backed Houthi fighters in Yemen. Egyptian president has warned of serious regional escalation after a drone strike targeted two vessels at Emitia port on the Mediterranean coast. He called on Egypt, Spain, Europe and the wider international community to work together to prevent further tensions in the region. Egyptian authorities are investigating the attack on the US-owned floating storage and regasification unit Energos Winter and the Greek-owned LNG tanker Gaslog Salem. The US Senate has rejected another war powers resolution aimed at restricting President Donald Trump's authority to continue military operations against Iran without congressional approval. The measure failed by a vote of 49 to 50, marking another unsuccessful attempt by lawmakers to limit US military involvement in the conflict. The vote comes amid growing regional tensions and concerns over further escalation.
Section 11 of the Terrorist Act. Terrible terrorist mopping, which is cleaning.
More than 50 activists were arrested outside Westminster Magistrates Court in London during a protest challenging the use of counter-terrorism laws against pro-Palestinian campaigners. Demonstrators, many wearing red or sitting peacefully outside the court, said that the action was aimed at defending freedom of expression and human rights.
Saving lives is not terrorism. Saving lives is not terrorism. Saving lives is not terrorism.
The protest, titled "Saving Lives is Not Terrorism," also criticized the UK government's position on the conflict in Gaza. Authorities have not provided further details on the arrest. A Russian attack on a food business in Ukraine's Pavlohrad city has killed 3 people and injured at least 10, according to regional officials. The strike triggered a fire at the site, with security footage showing the moment of the explosion. Ukrainian authorities said emergency services responded to the damage as investigations into the attack continue. Hundreds of migrants reached Spain's North African enclave of Ceuta on Thursday after crossing from Morocco by swimming through coastal waters and breaching border barriers. Spanish authorities deployed military personnel, police and maritime patrol units along the coastline and roads as the arrivals entered the city. Ceuta and Melilla, Spain's two